In early 2025, Houthi rebels fired a missile at what they believed was an easy US target flying over the Red Sea. But they didn't know the aircraft was a Navy A-18 Super Hornet, the same jet known for surviving decades of modern combat equipped with jamming pods, flares, and anti-missile systems the missile missed. What came next didn't. The US launched a crushing retaliation that didn't just end in rubble, it reset the entire battlefield. And it all started with one shot aimed at the wrong jet. Why did the US respond with its deadliest airstrike of the year? And how did one miscalculation spark chaos across multiple countries? Stay locked in, because what happened next changed everything. The Red Sea has become a war zone without borders, a stretch of water now tangled in high-stakes military strategy, regional politics, and raw firepower. Once seen as a vital corridor for oil tankers and global trade, it's now an aerial chessboard where fighter jets scream overhead, drones scan for movement, and long-range missiles wait like coiled vipers. The Houthis, backed by Iranian weapons and intelligence, have fortified Yemen's western coast with hidden launch sites and mobile batteries. Meanwhile, US warships, led by the USS Harry S. Truman, hold position like sentinels of the sea, their radar systems scanning for even the smallest flicker of threat. Every overflight is a calculated risk, every mission a roll of the dice. One wrong move, even a single false radar ping, and it's not just jets that get scrambled, it's diplomacy, global trade, and possibly the next Middle East war. February 19th, 2025. A date now studied by analysts and watched closely by command centers worldwide. On that day, Houthi forces launched 2 surface-to-air missiles, one locked onto a US F-16 fighter jet, the other onto an MQ-9 Reaper drone. Neither hit. But this wasn't about hitting, it was about making a statement. The Houthis weren't just poking the hornet's nest, they were aiming to slap it full force. They wanted the world to see that even a group seen as underdogs in asymmetric warfare could reach for the skies. It was part defiance, part theatre, part strategic escalation, and whether it was driven by Iranian backing, battlefield frustration, or sheer overconfidence, they crossed a line. The only thing more dangerous than an enemy with weapons is one with a point to prove. And in trying to prove they could bring down a US jet, they triggered something far bigger than they expected. On March 15, 2025, the US answered not with words, but with warplanes. Operation Rough Rider was launched with precision and fury, designed to do more than just respond. It was a show of force, a shockwave sent across Yemen's military map. The targets were carefully chosen but mercilessly hit. Command centers, surface-to-air launchers, weapon stockpiles, radar systems, even the camouflage netting couldn't save them. Jets flew in layered waves, guided by real-time satellite intel and ship-based control rooms. It wasn't just about hitting back, it was about breaking the Houthis' rhythm, shattering their nerve, and reminding the world what happens when you challenge the most advanced air force on the planet. The message was sharp: if you think the skies are yours to hunt, we'll make the ground you launch from disappear. Then came the real turning point, the Ras Isa port strike. On April 18, 2025, US jets flew a high-priority mission over western Yemen, locking onto one of the Houthis' most critical assets, the Ras Isa oil terminal. This wasn't just a symbolic hit, it was tactical, economic, and psychological. That port fueled much of the region under Houthi control. It kept trucks moving, generators running, and missile systems operational. The airstrike flattened large sections of the site. Initial reports confirmed at least 74 dead, 171 injured, and untold damage to Yemen's already fragile fuel infrastructure. But beyond the numbers, the strike dealt a brutal blow to the Houthis' ability to wage war. Overnight, one of their most vital lifelines went dark. The Houthis didn't waste time. Just 5 days later, on April 23rd, they launched a ballistic missile aimed at northern Israel, a clear escalation, and a new front in a conflict that was already boiling over. Israeli Iron Dome batteries intercepted the projectile mid-air, preventing any civilian casualties. But that wasn't the only move they made. The same day, the Houthis claimed responsibility for shooting down yet another US MQ-9 Reaper drone over Hajjah, a governorate already riddled with drone warfare and militia clashes. This wasn't just retaliation, it was defiance. They didn't retreat into hiding. They expanded their fight to include Israel, the US, and shipping lanes in the Red Sea. The message was simple and dangerous: intimidate us, and we'll set the region ablaze. But not all threats wore the enemy's flag. In a stunning twist back in December 2024, A US Navy FA-18 Super Hornet was mistakenly targeted and shot down by the USS Gettysburg, an Allied warship in the same theater. The ship's missile defense system flagged the jet as hostile and fired without confirmation, a catastrophic error in a high-stakes zone. Fortunately, both pilots ejected and were recovered safely, but the fallout was immediate. It raised a chilling question inside military circles. How do you fight the enemy when your own systems can't tell friend from foe? In a region teeming with drones, jets, and overlapping operations, the margin for error is razor thin, and in this case, the mistake could have been fatal. By April 2025, what began as a contained military exchange between the US and the Houthis had spiraled into a full-scale regional crisis. The Red Sea, one of the world's most vital maritime routes, was now teetering on the edge of collapse. Commercial vessels rerouted or paused operations, insurance premiums soared, and oil markets reacted almost instantly with prices nudging higher and global supply chains tightening. The United Nations convened urgent talks, while NATO members expressed concern over escalating instability. Meanwhile, the US ramped up its airstrikes, and the Houthis kept firing back drones, missiles, and propaganda, trying to hold the spotlight. Even countries with no direct ties to Yemen began watching nervously, realizing this wasn't just a Middle East issue anymore. One missile launched at a US jet had triggered a geopolitical wildfire, and the worst part? There was no off-ramp in sight. The Houthis thought they were sending a message that no target, not even a US fighter jet, was off-limits. But instead, they triggered a miscalculation that exposed the fragility of their strategy. The FA-18 Super Hornet they locked onto wasn't flying solo. It was part of a combat ecosystem, integrated with radar-guided destroyers, backed by electronic warfare aircraft, and protected by real-time satellite intelligence. Hitting it would have taken more than ambition, it would have taken near-perfect execution. They missed, and that gave the US a green light. Within days, American aircraft dismantled key Houthi radar systems, destroyed launch platforms, and crippled logistics hubs. US pilots began operating with a level of freedom they hadn't seen in months. The Houthis didn't just miss their shot, they missed the reality of modern warfare. When you attack a jet, you're not attacking a plane. You're challenging the full force of a military machine designed to fight and win as one. What began as a single missile shot across the sky turned into a full-blown military counter-offensive. The Houthis tried to shake the sky, and in return, the US set the ground on fire. But here's the reality. This isn't over, not even close. With every failed attack and every successful retaliation, the stakes only climb higher. The region's now sitting on a powder keg, and the next spot could come from anywhere. If you want to stay ahead of what's happening in the Red Sea and beyond, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell because the next chapter is coming fast.